So many people asked me to talk about this new tablet released by Huion, the Huion Kamvas Pro 19. The bottom line is it is a very good pen display, and I do recommend it. It represents the best drawing experience I've ever seen from a Huion tablet. I'm very happy with what Huion did here. In the landscape of drawing tablets that are offered by competitors of Wacom, this tablet sets a new bar. This tablet strongly competes with the new Wacom Cintiq Pro models that were released in 2023. And I'm not saying that just because this tablet costs less. I'm saying that because this tablet delivers a drawing experience that is close to the quality of the Wacom Cintiq Pro. Now, despite all my good feelings about this tablet, I have to remind you hardware is only one aspect of the many things you need to take into account. In particular, and I have mentioned this many times, I think that non-Wacom brands are still catching up to Wacom in terms of reliability and customer support, but they are making progress. So take that into account if you purchase this tablet. Before I discuss the details about this tablet, I need to go over a few points. First, everything I do is independent of any drawing tablet brand. I don't have any relationship to Huion or any other brand of drawing tablet. I spend my own money purchasing the tablets I talk or write about, and specifically, I spent my own money purchasing this tablet. And if you're wondering, yes, I have a lot of drawing tablets. I think about 65 now. Second, I call this video my notes on the tablet. I don't talk about it as if it's a review. But to be fair, it will cover some topics that are in reviews you've seen before, but certainly it will cover some topics you have never seen in any tablet review before. When I buy a drawing tablet, I share my experience via written notes, and I publish those notes on a website, which you can see right here. Everything there is freely available. It includes notes for tablets, troubleshooting guides, a buying guide, and all sorts of technical deep dives. And that site doesn't have any cookies or ads or user tracking or affiliate links or store. This is all a hobby for me. And finally, this video is a point in time. It represents my experiences with the tablet after a month. As I learn more and as people ask me questions, I may revise my notes. So for the latest information, always check back to my written notes. The link is in the video description below. Third, learn to make use of community resources. I am just one of many people who have this tablet, but check in with what others think. So I would encourage you to visit the Huion subreddit. It's a great place for answers to your questions. Just remember that it is a community effort and is not officially maintained by the Huion brand. Now, a few months ago, the moderator at the time of the subreddit asked me to take over as moderator, so I do spend a lot of time there. But again, just keep in mind this is a volunteer effort and I have no relationship to the Huion brand. I am also the moderator of the Drawing Tablet subreddit, which is another highly active community that you might be interested in. And to accelerate your time to getting an answer for both subreddits, if you're going to ask a question, please look at the top pinned comment. It contains a list of answers to frequently asked questions. Moving on to the tablet itself, let's start with some basics. In January, Huion released two new professional pen displays, the Huion Kamvas Pro 19 and the larger Huion Kamvas Pro 27. This video is about my experience using the Kamvas Pro 19 for a little over a month. Of course, this model shares technology and features with the Kamvas Pro 27, so lots of things that I say here will also apply to the 27-inch model. The first thing I'd like to do is position this tablet in the landscape of other Huion professional pen displays. This list does not include every Huion professional pen display, but it does include many of them from recent years. The information I'm providing here is the year that Huion released that model, whether I own that model, and a column that just tries to lightly summarize my feeling on that tablet model. I have two red hearts on the row for the Kamvas Pro 19 because I really like this tablet. I have one red heart by the Kamvas Pro 24 4K because I really like that tablet a lot too, but I do think the technology of this newer tablet is noticeably better. I have two blue hearts by the Kamvas Pro 27, and the blue here really indicates that this is what I expect it will be like with the Kamvas Pro 27, but I don't have that model, so this is really driven by my experiences with the 19-inch model. Here is a diagram explaining the size ranges for pen displays going from small, medium, large, and then to extra large. The numbers here are given in inches. The Kamvas Pro 19 has a really unusual size. I can't think of any other tablet that is this size, and it's not even 19 inches. It's actually 18.5 inches. So it's on the larger end of a medium-sized pen display. In other words, it feels more like using a 16-inch pen display than using a 22-inch pen display. So if you're coming from the world of a 16-inch pen display, then this model might be a really nice upgrade for you in terms of size. However, if you're coming from a 22-inch pen display and you're coming down to this size, then I think you will feel a little more cramped and constrained due to its size. So in any case, honestly, I do hope that Huion releases a tablet more in like a 22-inch size with the same technology. That would be my ideal. Huion actually gives a name for their pen technology. They call it PenTech, and they give it a version number. So we've been at PenTech 3.0 for a number of years, but this tablet and the 27-inch model introduces PenTech 4.0. We'll explore PenTech 4.0 later in this video, but the key takeaway is that the drawing experience with PenTech 4.0 is noticeably better, and largely this is due to the improved pressure handling. Now let's direct our attention to the pens that come with the tablet. The Kamvas Pro 19 comes with two pens, the PW600, and that one has a shape similar to a Wacom Pro Pen 2. And then the PW600S, and I suppose the S stands for Slim, because this pen has a shape like the Wacom Pro Pen Slim. The red tape you see in the photos is something I applied so that I could easily distinguish these pens from other pens, because as you can imagine, I have a lot of pens. Both of these pens use PenTech 4.0, and really they behave exactly the same way in terms of drawing performance, for example with how they handle pressure, etc. The only difference here besides the shape is that the PW600 has 3 buttons, while the PW600S has 2 buttons. Another difference from older pens like the PW517 pen is that these buttons feel clickier. It's a subtle change, but it's nice because it just feels more clear that you've actually pressed the button. Again, not a big deal, but it feels nicer and a bit more premium. And I want to recognize that it is a very good thing and very desirable that Huion provides 2 pens. First, honestly, at these prices, we deserve 2 pens. Second, if you lose your pen or something goes wrong, then you have a backup. And third, sometimes if there's a problem with your pen, it's hard to troubleshoot the problem because you can't tell if the problem is with the pen or with the tablet or something else. So having 2 pens is incredibly useful. So providing 2 pens in the box is something that I think all manufacturers should start doing. For most tablets, when you get the pens out of the box, you will see that they have installed plastic nibs. But these pens have the felt nibs pre-installed. And I liked it because it does add some additional feeling of texture to the surface of the tablet. The tablet does come with replacement nibs, both plastic and felt, so if you want to switch, it's not a problem. I really enjoyed using these felt nibs. In fact, it's the first time I have extensively used felt nibs for drawing. With my drawing style, I don't have a lot of wear on my plastic nibs, and I didn't notice any wear on these felt nibs after using them for a month. For those of you who draw with more pressure, you might experience that the felt nibs wear down more, so keep that in mind and just remember you can always swap to the plastic nibs. Whenever I talk about new pens, especially if they're good, people start asking about cross-compatibility. For example, they ask if they can use the new pens with the older tablets. And then some people wonder if they can use their older pens with the newer tablets. These are very natural questions. I did some testing between different combinations of pens and tablets that use PenTech 3.0 and PenTech 4.0. Here's the summary based on that testing. PenTech 4.0 tablets only work with PenTech 4.0 pens, so you cannot use older Huion pens with this new tablet. And likewise, PenTech 3.0 pens only work with PenTech 3.0 tablets. Ultimately, the PenTech versions have to match between tablet and pen. Let me add a little bit of extra detail here about using the older PW517 pen with this newer tablet. The older PW517 pen partially works with this new tablet. The tablet can detect the position of the pen, however, pressing the buttons and pressure do not work at all. So using the older pen is just not useful at all for normal scenarios. Now let's move on to the display itself. What you're seeing here is the on-screen display, the OSD. You can bring up the OSD just by holding down the power button for a few seconds. And then once it's up, you use the pen to select options. What you're seeing here are the different color modes. You can select between native, sRGB, Adobe RGB, DCI-P3, and a user mode. As I typically do with pen displays, I used sRGB mode because it more closely matches the other displays that I use. I am not an expert in color, so I'm not going to say anything further about it in terms of its accuracy, but I can say that in the month I used it, I used the sRGB setting and I was very happy with the way the colors looked. The Huion Kamvas Pro 19 supports up to 220 nits of brightness. I used it always at the full 100% brightness level. In comparison, the Wacom Cintiq Pro 22 supports up to 300 nits of brightness, and I use the Cintiq Pro 22 at 50% brightness. My usage of the Cintiq Pro at 50% brightness is driven by another reason, which I'll discuss later in the video. So to summarize brightness for the Kamvas Pro 19, I would say that it is not an extremely bright display, but I think it is bright enough. All modern professional pen displays these days tend to have an etched glass surface. Etched glass means there is a microscopic texture to the glass. This texture has two effects. First, it disperses light so that it really reduces glare, and second, it provides more grip for the pen. The specific etched glass treatment Huion used with this tablet really does reduce glare. For example, if you try to see the reflection of a light on the surface, you will very clearly see that the light is spread out quite widely and you cannot see a clear definition of a light bulb. In fact, I noticed that it disperses the light much more than on my Wacom Cintiq Pro 22. With the Cintiq Pro 22, I could easily make out the light bulb shape very clearly. The anti-glare etching disperses light not only from the room that's hitting the tablet surface, but also light that's coming from the display panel inside the tablet. This dispersal of light from the display panel can create what is known as anti-glare sparkle. The official term for this is anti-glare sparkle, but people also use words like rainbow or noisy or greasy. Some people think it looks like it's wet, but whatever they call it, people do not like the effect. How much sparkle you see depends on really two things. First is the physical parameters of the anti-glare treatment. Some treatments just give more sparkle than others. And second, it depends on the pixel density of the display, the pixels per inch. So for example, let's say you have two 16-inch displays, and one is 4K and one is HD, and they both have the same exact anti-glare treatment. You will notice that the 4K display has much more anti-glare sparkle than the HD display. With some of their high pixel density displays, for example the 16-inch displays at 4K, Huion has struggled with anti-glare sparkle. So I was really curious to see how the Kamvas Pro 19 would handle it. And it's really great news. The Kamvas Pro 19 has a very low amount of anti-glare sparkle given its size and its resolution. Yes, you can see some anti-glare sparkle when your eyes are close at about 4 inches to 6 inches, but it's not something I notice at my typical posture as I draw. Furthermore, this amount of anti-glare sparkle matches what I see with the Wacom Cintiq Pro 22 and the Wacom Cintiq Pro 16. And that means this tablet is matching what the best pen displays do at this size and resolution. So I think I have to recognize that Huion has made a fantastic improvement in this area. On the right side, you see some comparisons I made to other tablets that I own. This display exhibits a slight softness to the pixels. There could be multiple reasons for this, but I believe it primarily comes from the anti-glare treatment. Whatever the reason, it is definitely slightly more soft than, for example, what I see with the Cintiq Pro 22. This softness was noticeable to me the very first moment I laid eyes on the display, but I wasn't bothered by it at all. It's just something I noticed. I'm pointing out the softness now because I do recognize that some of you are more sensitive to this than I am. In any case, I'll repeat, I think it's completely acceptable. I think it's only very slightly more soft than the Cintiq Pro, so I don't find it to be a big problem. These kinds of effects on a display can be a little tricky to photograph, but here are two photos I took. On the left is the Wacom Cintiq Pro 22, and on the right, the Huion Kamvas Pro 19. The pixels are smaller on the Huion Kamvas Pro 19, So that's why the text looks smaller on the right than on the left, and that is completely normal. And here, I think you should be able to see a little bit of that softness that I noticed on the right. Again, it is hard to photograph, and honestly, I felt that with my own eyes, it looked a little more soft than these pictures reveal. The parallax in this tablet is very good. That means there's very little of it in this pen display. One of the reasons that parallax is good here is that this tablet has a laminated display, and that's very common nowadays with high-end pen displays. And so in comparison to other pen displays I have, I would say the parallax is very good. It is comparable in my eyes to the parallax that I see with my Cintiq Pro 22. But for full context, I should tell you that the parallax you see in an Apple iPad is noticeably better. Now let's move on to the drawing experience. The Kamvas Pro 19 tracks the position of the pen very well, and the pointer stays underneath the tip of the pen. I think this is very comparable to the overall accuracy of the Wacom Cintiq Pro 22. Corner and edge accuracy are normal, which means that there is a little bit of deviation in the last, let's say, millimeter or two as you approach the edge or corner. It did not interfere with my usage of this pen display, and I felt that the deviation was minor. I do think that the Cintiq Pro 22 does do a slightly better job of accuracy at the corner or edges, but I am happy with what the Kamvas Pro 19 has. Pointer lag is how much the operating system pointer follows behind the physical tip of the pen. All pen displays have noticeable pointer lag. The Kamvas Pro 19 has a normal or typical amount of pointer lag for a pen display. I would say it is on par with the Cintiq Pro 22, the Cintiq Pro 27, and the Cintiq Pro 16. So relatively speaking, it is doing well. Of course, I do think pen displays in general should get better, and no pen display I've ever used, even the Wacom Cintiq Pro models, come close to the very minimal pointer lag that I see with the Apple iPad Pro. Now let's talk about pressure range. This means the initial activation force, the IAF, and the maximum pressure. This is a draft of a diagram I am creating, which is intended to give you a sense about the landscape of IAF and maximum pressure values. The values for the new Huion PW600 and PW600S pens are highlighted in red. For the new pens, Huion says the IAF is 2 gram force. I'm not very skilled at testing IAF values, so I will have to take Huion's word for this. But as I use the pen, I do feel it is very sensitive, and certainly more sensitive than the older generation of pens like the Huion PW51. Wacom professional pens like the Wacom Pro Pen 2 are still better though. Tablet Expert Cube measures their IAF at less than 1 gram force. For me, the differences don't matter. I feel like they're equally good. I just don't think I have the fine motor skills to tell the difference. But I do know some people can tell the difference, for example with a Wacom Pro Pen 2. So if you're one of those people, you should take this into account. But to summarize overall, I think the IAF is very good. Both pens support a maximum pressure of 500 gram force, which I validated in my own testing. This is a very good number for a non-Wacom pen. But keep in mind, the Wacom Pro Pen 2 has a maximum pressure of about 800 gram force. With the new pens having a maximum pressure of 500 gram force, that represents a big improvement over the older PW517 pen. That pen has a maximum pressure of around 200 gram force. And let me add a little more context to that. I have 4 of these PW517 pens, and their maximum pressure is all over the place. Some of my PW517 pens have a maximum pressure of 150 gram force, which is pretty low. Some have 200 gram force, which is okay, and some go as high as 300 gram force. As you can see, there's lots of inconsistency for maximum pressure with the PW517 pen. Pressure transition stability is what I call what happens as you increase or decrease the pressure. You want the pressure to smoothly increase and decrease, and normally that is what happens. However, I have occasionally discovered pens that, especially at the lower end of the pressure range, you can see that small changes in physical pressure will result in really wild swings in the pressure readings from the tablet. Those wild swings are what I call pressure transition instability. Since you might not be familiar with this topic, I wanted to show you several examples of what pressure transition stability or instability look like. What you're seeing here is the result of me drawing with Krita with no brush smoothing and no pressure smoothing. I'm using a relatively big brush. In this case, it's about 100 pixels. If you're using a small brush of, let's say, 5 pixels or 10 pixels, you might not ever notice this effect. We have to use these larger brushes essentially as a kind of microscope to scale up the effect so that we can see what is happening. On the left is the Wacom Intuos Pro Large, and things are very smooth. If you see any sudden variation in the thickness of the line, that's really just due to my hand, not the tablet or not the pen. The middle example is from the Wacom Intuos M, and you can see that the transition doesn't look quite as nice. And then on the right side, finally we have a really bad example of pressure transition stability. This is with the Wacom One Medium tablet. And you can see that there's some really strange pulsing and weird transitions in the strokes. So to summarize for the Kamvas Pro 19, it does not have problems with these pressure transitions. What I found was that physical pressure changes deliver smooth changes in the pressure readings. And this happens even with large brushes, for example 300 pixels. They produce very smooth strokes. I would say the stability of the pressure transition is on par with the Wacom Cintiq Pro 22. In order to correctly represent the position of the pen, the tablet has to perform something called tilt compensation. This means adjusting the pointer position depending on how much the pen is tilted. This is very important for EMR tablets because the digitizer is sensing an inductor inside the pen, and that inductor is not close to the tip of the pen, it's deeper inside the pen. Some other pen technologies, for example the Apple Pencil, don't have as big a separation as EMR tablets have. Now, no tablet does tilt compensation perfectly. I have seen some very old tablets do this very badly, almost as if they don't compensate for tilt at all. But these days, a modern EMR drawing tablet does a decent job compensating for tilt, and so the pointer doesn't really shift too far away from where the tip of the pen is. But there is some variation. Some tablets are better at this than others. The Kamvas Pro 19 does a very good job at tilt compensation. Tilting the pen does not substantially affect the position of the pointer. I really only saw a substantial deviation when there was an extreme amount of tilt. Overall, I think the tilt compensation of this tablet is on par with the Wacom Cintiq Pro 22, so it's very good. Now let's talk about the Huion tablet driver and how it works with this new tablet. I already mentioned that the tablet comes with two different pens, the PW600 and the PW600S. The tablet driver is aware that there are two different models of pen. The driver does let you have some settings that are specific to which model you're using. For example, you can configure the buttons differently. You can have the buttons do one set of things on the PW600 pen and do something completely different on the PW600S pen. However, the driver has a single shared setting for pressure curve that applies to both pens. In the future, I hope Huion releases a driver that lets you assign different pressure curves to the different pen models. This is something that the Wacom drivers can handle. There are some issues that affect tablet drivers in general that I want to talk about. Number one, there's a very common situation where a tablet driver does not detect the tablet. I've seen this across every kind of tablet from every brand, and it is a very difficult problem to diagnose. And I've never found one clear answer about how to fix it. Sometimes it just fixes itself with some time. In any case, I did not encounter this problem as I was testing this tablet over the past month. The second issue that you can encounter with drivers in general is that the driver can get confused about how to map the active area of the tablet to a display. This problem seems to occur when your computer is waking from sleep, or sometimes when you turn your computer off and then back on. The driver just forgets how to map the active area of the tablet. This seems to be a situation that happens on Windows, and I'm not sure if Mac OS users encounter it at all. Here are some of the kinds of things that happen when your computer wakes from sleep. The driver can change the active area to map to a different display. It can change the active area to map to multiple displays. Or sometimes I've seen a driver misapply the active area, so it's kind of partially applied across multiple displays. If it does happen, the fix is simple. You just go into the tablet driver and set the active area to what you want. But it's just irritating to have to fix it. My testing setup involves a Microsoft Surface Pro attached to a Microsoft Thunderbolt Surface dock. And I switch between multiple Surface devices. And I use a specific Microsoft Surface Pro 8 for all my tablet testing. So when I unplug it from the dock, that Surface Pro 8 goes to sleep. And then when I plug it back in, it wakes up. And then about half the time, I saw that the Huion driver got confused and mapped the active area incorrectly. This is a problem I have noticed with Huion drivers in general, and it's not unique to this tablet at all. And I do think that Huion has this problem more than other brands. They know about it, they just haven't really solved this problem yet. It is a minor irritation for me because I do swap out my Surface Pro devices quite a bit. So I do hope that Huion fixes this in a future release of the tablet driver. And now for a few ergonomic topics. The Huion Kamvas Pro 19 comes with a headphone jack on the right side. I don't ever use it with headphones, so I can't comment on the quality of the audio or anything. But I want to give you a heads up on something you should be aware of if you use it with Windows. On Windows 11, when you plug in a display that has built-in audio, Windows thinks that the device has speakers, that it's a TV essentially. So it will transfer your sound output from whatever device you're currently using to this new device. That does make sense if you're plugging in a TV, so I can understand why Windows would choose to do this. However, this tablet is not a television, it does not have speakers, it just has the headphone jack. So if you plug in this tablet, your audio will suddenly go away because it's trying to play through the tablet and you won't hear it because, you don't have headphones plugged in. I think I've also seen this problem occur when I woke the computer from sleep. It automatically mapped the audio to the Kamvas Pro 19. So if you do get this tablet and plug it in and are really concerned that your audio went away, don't worry, it's a simple fix. If you get this pop-up, then just select the audio device you want to use. Or you can always go into audio settings and change the device manually. The Kamvas Pro 19 comes with 2 folding legs on the back. This is very nice, very convenient because you can draw at a small angle without having to use a stand. It's worth noting that the Cintiq Pro 22 and the Cintiq Pro 27 do not have legs. You have to use them with some kind of stand. I tried these legs, they seemed very sturdy and I had no complaints. But to be honest, I don't use these legs because I like to change up the angle quite a bit and the legs only provide one angle. And also, sometimes I want a more steep angle than the legs can provide. So instead I use a stand. And this leads me to the topic of VESA mounting. There are 4 VESA mounting holes on the back. These are 75mm by 75mm. Any VESA mount or arm or stand that works with that will work with this tablet. In my case, I use the Huion adjustable stand model number ST100A. The Kamvas Pro 19 is completely silent. It has no fans to cause any noise. This is really nice because the Cintiq Pro tablets do have fans and they do cause noise. And that noise can be really irritating. Let's compare the noise to a Cintiq Pro 22. At 70% brightness for the Cintiq Pro 22, the fan is audible and quite irritating. And that's why I run the Cintiq Pro at 50% brightness, because the fan is less audible and less irritating. Since there are no fans, we probably have some questions about heat. Well, the good news is the heat is very, very well managed. I tested the tablet at 100% brightness for a month, and I didn't turn off the display at all. And during that time, the tablet kept very cool. It's comparable to a Wacom Cintiq Pro in terms of temperature. Maybe it's very, very slightly warmer than the Cintiq Pro 22. There are always lots of questions about the surface texture for a pen display. Let me start off by saying that no pen display ever feels just like paper, but certainly they do have some texture and they generally avoid feeling slippery like what you would experience with an Apple iPad. What you feel as texture is affected by 2 things. First, of course, the surface of the tablet itself. In this case, the Huion Kamvas Pro 19 has an etched glass surface which provides some nice texture. And additionally, what you feel as texture comes from the material that's used for the nib, which is usually plastic or felt. So in my testing, I tried 4 different combinations of pens and nib materials, and I compared them to other tablets, and that's what's shown in this table here. The quick summary is that the surface texture of the Huion Kamvas Pro 19 is on par with the Wacom Cintiq Pro 22. And I would say this tablet has slightly more surface texture, at least in my experience, than the Huion Kamvas Pro 24 4K. As for touch support, let's start with macOS. Huion says that touch support is not supported on macOS, and I can confirm that. If you plug in this tablet to a MacBook Pro, and even if you install the drivers, nothing will happen. There's no touch support at all. Yes, that is a little bit disappointing, but I do not think that's a big deal because macOS, oddly enough, does not support touch very well, unlike the Apple iPads, which have great touch support. So touch support with this tablet is really about touch support on Windows. And Windows has built-in touch support that's really very good. When I used this tablet with Windows 11, I felt like the touch was on par with the native touch support of the Surface Pro 8's display. Palm rejection is good, but not as good as an Apple iPad. The one thing I noticed, and also Brad Colbo noticed, is that if your palm is detected, it doesn't seem to cause a drawing or stray strokes, but instead it will cause a click. So that is an improvement over how previous generations of pen displays worked with touch, but still not as good as an iPad. If you want really excellent palm rejection, then the way to do it is to use the drawing glove that comes with the tablet. The drawing glove did a really great job of preventing accidental touches. As long as it was the glove material that touched the tablet, it triggered no accidental touches whatsoever. And so I was very happy with that. Let's move on to connections and cabling. To get things started, I just want to make sure that you know about the prerequisites for a USB-C cable to carry a display signal. It's pretty simple. The USB-C cable and the USB-C ports involved must all support something called DP alt mode. You cannot use just any random USB-C cable that you have. And you have to verify that your computer's USB-C port does support DP alt mode. A very common question I received was, does the Kamvas Pro 19 support a single USB connection to a computer? This topic has a bit of nuance to it, so bear with me. The official answer is no. Huion says this tablet does not support a single USB connection to a computer. They list that on one of their documentation pages. It explicitly says this tablet requires an additional source of power, and they provide an additional USB-C cable that goes to a power adapter that is provided with the tablet. But I had to see for myself. So with the appropriate cables, I tested this with my Microsoft Surface Pro 8 and my M3 MacBook Pro. And in both cases, it did not work. Neither computer was able to provide enough power through the USB-C cable. However, I did encounter one user on Reddit who was able to make this work. But that user had some special hardware. He had an Asus Thunderbolt 4 card installed in his computer. That card provided Thunderbolt 4 ports and was able to bring enough power to those ports. And for him, it did work over a single cable. But my feeling is this is a somewhat exceptional case. After all, it required special hardware. I think that most computers would probably not deliver enough power to use a single USB-C cable. On the topic of cabling, here is how I actually connected everything together. The Kamvas Pro 19 has two USB-C ports on the right side. The upper USB-C port is connected to my Surface Thunderbolt 4 dock, and the cable I use for this is the Huion provided USB-C cable. This cable carries the display signal from the computer to the tablet. And of course, the Thunderbolt 4 dock is then in turn connected to my Surface Pro 8 and any other peripherals. The lower USB-C port on the tablet is connected via the Huion provided USB-C power cable to the Huion power adapter, which is then plugged into the wall. I mentioned just a moment ago that Huion provides a USB-C cable that is meant for carrying the display signal. And that is the cable that I used. But normally for pen displays, I never use the cables that a manufacturer provides. I just use my own Cable Matters Thunderbolt 3 cable. And that's what I tried with this tablet at first. And it did work. However, that cable was a little loose in the socket. And I often found that if the cable moved a little bit, then the tablet would lose the display signal. And then I would get that infamous no signal message. At first, I was actually worried that there was something wrong with the port on the tablet. But that is when I discovered something really very important as I closely examined the cables. So with these USB-C cables, the plug end has this metallic part sticking out. The USB cable that Huion provides has a metallic part that's actually about 1 millimeter longer than the same metallic part on my Cable Matters Thunderbolt 3 cable. And so once I switched to the Huion cable, I no longer had that problem about the tablet losing display signal whenever I moved the cable. As I conclude this video, let me encourage you to leave a comment with your questions or feedback. And please, do review my written notes about this tablet. I will update those notes as I get more questions. The link to those notes are in the video description. And for community support, please visit the r/Huion subreddit. Thanks for your time, and I hope you enjoyed this video.